So for this video, I want to point out something that I noticed that the Black community does, and it's not like they do it on purpose. It's not like it's on the forefront of their mind. However, I feel like I need to point this out because this is important when it comes to our Indigenous American ancestry and finding our Indigenous American ancestry. And when we don't, sometimes things can get a bit tricky, and I'm going to explain that in this video. A few weeks back, I had made a video talking about New York Native American history and talking about how parts of my family come from that Native American ancestry that is up here in New York, particularly Staten Island. And my family is also a part of the whole Sandy Ground, which is, according to Google so far and researchers, it is the oldest Black settlement in the United States. And that's very, very important because a lot of Black communities around the US is demolished or has been burnt down and goes unnoticed, so on and so forth. It's a long, long, long story, and I would talk about it, but the video will be super long. However, so right now, Sandy Ground is under construction when it comes to their museum because I was gonna go with my cousin and film some stuff to show you guys. However, they are under like reconstruction and stuff. Until then, I was looking on their website and I noticed that they speak about African Americans. They founded Sandy Ground, and some of them were already here, and then some came from like Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, and it was a bunch of oystermen, sailors, and stuff like that. Cool. However, they left out, so for as far as I could see on their website, they left out the Native American part to this whole Sandy Ground story. And that's what I want to point out. Now, the reason why I am pointing this out is because the fact that a lot of us who come from the Black community, most of us been told that we have Native American in our family. However, it is hard to find at times when a lot of our ancestors have been misclassified, and on top of that, the history of Native Americans keep getting put on the back burner. Like for instance, when it comes to Sandy Ground used to be a Native American village. However, on the website, I didn't see anything about that. It was just mainly about African Americans, which is fine, but Native Americans did contribute to the whole Sandy Ground, and they were here first. And not to burn any bridges, but like I said, I do want to point this out because this is important, and it's not like Blacks do this on purpose. We all want to tell our stories. However, it is an issue when a lot of us have been told that we have Native American in our family, and the history is lost because it keeps getting put on the back burner. If this all makes sense, because I'm talking off the rip. This is not even planned. I just turned this camera on and was just like, okay, go. So I hope I'm making sense here. Another thing I want to point out too, when it comes to Sandy Ground, there were still Native Americans here when Sandy Ground was being created. And even though on the website it says that there were African Americans coming from Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware and stuff like that, some of those African Americans were Native Americans, and they did mix with the Native Americans that were here up in New York. Hence, this is how I'm here because of my family history. One of my cousins, for an example, who's been around longer than me, he's been sending me documents and stuff like that about our family history and showing me things that I couldn't even find because, to me, once I hit like maybe 17 something, depending on the documents, it gets really tricky for me to trace the family further back because like the handwriting and all that is just, I can't really comprehend it. But my cousin, along with somebody else in our family, they were able to trace back our Native American family history, not just in New York, but also Virginia and like North Carolina. So some of the documents that he was showing me, I'm only gonna put up one on here, and just in case if any family member comes across this video and sees this and calls me up, I did ask for permission, so there's that. But yes, he was showing me some documents, but I'm only gonna show one, and he was telling me about our ancestor, like my great great grandmother, whose name was Victoria. She comes from several tribes, not just from up here in New York, but also in like Virginia and North Carolina. And yes, you can have several tribes in your background, not just one tribe. As far as I know, back then you wasn't really allowed to date within your clan, and because the whole incest and all that. So therefore, people were dating around in different tribes in the area, which is pretty normal. It's like, just look at it as like neighbors from like across the way. So yeah, you could have several tribes in your family background. And when it comes to my great great grandmother Victoria, she has several tribes. Lenape for one, and when it comes to Virginia, she is Pamunkey. I never heard of Pamunkey before, but I came across learning about them a couple of years ago. I was side note, but I'm gonna get back on track here. I was watching this interview that Chris Brown was doing on some radio show, and this guy asked him about his Native American tat on his neck, and Chris Brown was saying that his family is Pamunkey, and that's when I first heard about them. But I never knew that my family had history with them as well. So Pamunkey, another tribe in the area, I can't really pronounce it. I think it's, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it. I'm gonna just put it on the screen. So one of our ancestors, who was born in 1619, was a chief of this tribe. And I was just like, what? So long story, but yeah, so this is what my cousin was showing me, and he also showed me that my great great grandmother Victoria has another ancestor from North Carolina, which I do have in my tree, but it was really getting difficult at that point to figure out like where in North Carolina this person was from. But that family goes back to the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina, and some of my family is in contact with the Lumbees. And Lumbees is also Tuscarora, and for those who don't know, I'm enrolled in a Tuscarora tribe in North Carolina from my dad's side. I didn't know that my mother's side, this is the side I'm talking about, I didn't know that my mother had part Tuscarora ancestry in her family, so that was pretty interesting. One thing I want to point out with that too, real quick, is when I found out that my mother's side had ancestry going back to that tribe in North Carolina, and my dad's side as well, they were like, in two separate counties. I had to really make sure, because I was like, hold up, I know my parents ain't like distant cousins. So I had to like double, triple check to make sure. And as far as I know, um, I don't see a connection between them two. But this is what I mean by it's so important for us to know our history, because you can accidentally be dating or marrying like a distant cousin and you don't even know. So yeah, back to the main topic at hand. I am not trying to burn any bridges or anything. I'm not trying to start any trouble or whatever, but I don't really like the fact how we have a historical site that is still around and is the oldest black community in the US, because every other black community has been torn down, burnt down, underneath a lake, so on and so forth. And ours is still standing. And, that's a blessing. But I feel like it's important for us to get our history correct, because it's a representation of everyone else as a whole. Because a lot of people moved up to New York, stuff like that. There was the Underground Railroad, we still got documents. So it's all very important, and it would help a lot of people connect things together when it comes to like their state or whatever, because we all went through the same thing. But that's all I want to say on here. I hope my story inspires you if you are trying to find your indigenous American side of your family tree and maybe having a hard time. It does take time, but trust me, you will come along some type of document or something. Reach out to other family who is doing research as well. I know sometimes family can be stingy, but there are some people in the bunch that is just as genuine as you and really trying to find the whole history of your family tree. So, yeah, reach out to them if you are having a hard time. Because if I didn't reach out to my cousin, I would have never knew about all the other tribes that's in my family tree. So, yeah.